Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're here today with author Peter Rainer and artist Eric Johnson. Author, film critic, journalist, Peter Rainer was born and raised in New York. He was a Phi Beta Kappa, summa cum laude graduate from Brandeis University with an English and American literature major, and he earned his master's at USC's film school. He was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in Criticism in 1998 and won the National Entertainment Journalists Award for Best Online Critic. He's currently writing at the Christian Science Monitor and Bloomberg News. He's reviewing on National Public Radio's Film Week. And let's see what else you are. You're the president of the National Society of Film Critics. We're going to talk about your book, Rainer on Film, 30 Years of Film Writing in a Turbulent and Transformative Era. But first of all, when you went to Brandeis, what were you going to do with an English literature degree? Where were you going to go?
Well, I read a lot of books, and I figured, okay, I'll just get credit for it, is what it came down to. I actually started out as pre-med, because there are doctors in my family, but I just sort of figured it wasn't a good fit. So I gravitated to English. I was almost a double major with theater arts, so there's a little bit of a... Yeah, I directed a couple of shows, but the main thing is I was the film critic for the college newspaper, the Justice.
So you started, right?
I was an idiot savant, yeah.
Yeah, why did you start with film? Why weren't you just doing political essays or whatever?
Well, I did some of that too.
Did you?
Because see, I was the editor of my college newspaper in order to control the length of my film reviews.
How smart.
That's how driven I was. So I wrote quite a few editorials about, tenure track, blah, blah, and why they aren't plowing the field for the, entryway and all sorts of stuff like that. And it was the student strike era also.
Oh, I see.
In fact, Brandeis was the East Coast headquarters of the National Student Strike Committee.
But is that a med school? Would that be a pre-med school, Brandeis?
They don't have a med school, but they have, I think, the second highest success rate in getting people into med school because everybody there is, like burning the midnight oil to be a doctor. They all want to be Jewish doctors.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
But your family didn't get upset that you were a film critic? I mean, so far from the doctor role.
Well, I was good at what I did, and I guess I figured let's see what happens here, But being the film critic for the college newspaper in that era, we're talking the early mid-'70s, was really exciting because I don't think I'm being a sentimentalist when I say that movies were really at their peak then. American movies, they were week after week. I would review in the college newspaper The Godfather, The Sour and the Pity, Sounder, Last Picture Show, Cabaret. You name it. I mean, the Mean Streets, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, just week after week. And I think it's no accident that so many critics of my generation came up during that time and wrote for college papers because you have this captive audience of your fellow students and professors. The paper is dumped at the student union every week. Everyone's reading your stuff.
Right, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was just tremendously exciting.
So after that, you started... And I've asked you this question before, how do you remember everything? And listen to you from college, all the films that you remember. But starting in 1974, you wrote for Mademoiselle, then the Herald Examiner, then the LA Times, then LA Magazine, New Times LA, New York Magazine, and now you're with the Christian Science Monitor. Did any of those overlap?
There was a slight overlap with Mademoiselle and Herald. Mademoiselle I started not long after college, '74. The first film I ever reviewed professionally was Chinatown for them. and that actually lasted from 74 to 84. But I was at the Herald from 79 until the day it folded in 89.
We were there together.
Exactly, yeah, we were in the trenches. Nothing like being at a paper when it folds. For some reason, they always stand up on a desk to make the
Do
announcement.
you remember that?
Yeah, I don't know why they
People
do that.
were crying and they were standing on the
Yeah,
desk.
it was weird.
And I noticed that people were coming in like spies to write about it who weren't even supposed to be there. I was like really upset about that.
It was strange.
But as it
Otherwise,
overlapped.
there was no real overlap.
No, you had each time you finished one place, you went to another. How did you decide to go to those places? Why didn't you stay
Well,
at the
sometimes
Times?
the decision was made for me, Joan. Surviving in the critics biz is sort of like jumping from ice floe to ice floe.
I can imagine.
And sometimes you work for regimes that undergo regime change. They get bought.
Right.
New editors come in. They want their own people. Things happen, and it's But in some cases, in more than not, it was my choice. Because, this seemed like a better opportunity. For instance, when I was at Los Angeles Magazine, I was writing for a monthly. I had an opportunity to join this new paper, New Times Los Angeles, and write weekly for, twice the salary and benefits, and I got a Pulitzer finalist out of it. So
was that where it was?
Uh-huh.
98?
It was 98.
I know,
It was the Wall Street
Pulitzer
Journal,
finalist.
the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and me were the three finalists.
Can you imagine?
Throwaway weekly. So that was pretty cool.
That was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very proud of you at that point.
Yeah,
Come on, Peter.
Yeah.
Were the jobs similar? Were you doing only critiquing, or were you writing in-depth pieces?
Depending on the format of the publication, I would sometimes have the opportunity to write longer essays. It's not always possible. New York Magazine, I wrote fairly long reviews, but there wasn't much of an opportunity to write essays where I could really stretch out, which is really I love to do. When I was at the LA Times, both during the time that I was there and later on, even fairly recently as a freelancer, which I'm able to do, I did essays for Calendar. Wrote big essays on Robert Altman, on Ingmar Bergman, on a lot of different people.
Did you interview them? Were they alive, some of them?
No, Bergman was
gone, but
actually. Altman, not for that piece, but I had interviewed him for the Directors Guild magazine. It was actually maybe the last interview he ever gave.
So do you keep those notes, and do you go back and
sometimes,
use some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little disorganized, shall we say. Finding things from yesterday can sometimes be an issue.
But it's easier now with the computer, right?
Well, if you're computer literate, it is.
Oh,
yes.
if you are. Okay, so.
But no, Altman, I interviewed him. He took me into the cutting room where Prairie Home Companion was cutting.
Oh, he was. What does a film critic do? Do you go to the movie theater with a big audience? Do you go with other critics? Do you?
It varies.
Take something home and look at it? How do you do it?
It varies. More often than not, you see films with a public audience of fellow critics, journalists, people I have no idea who they are. The dentists, third assistant, they're all there. But you see it before the film opens. When a movie opens, like on a Friday, when they usually do, and the review comes out, it's not that we saw the 4 in the morning and came home and
when did you
wrote
see
it up.
it?
Usually you see a week to 2 weeks before. For studio pictures, usually a week or so. For independent films, foreign films, documentaries, it can be months before. If you go to film festivals like Toronto, you can see them a long time.
And you go to all the festivals?
I go to Toronto and Sundance. And
Cannes?
I've been to Cannes. I'm not going this year. It's a little pricey these days.
That's
Cannes.
what everyone's saying, right?
Yeah.
So how do they do? How do they get what they need to do? They see films here, or they see them in Canada? The same films, or?
Yeah, you mean...
if they're going to critique something.
Yeah, well, I mean, in general, if I see a movie, I'll get an email or increasingly less so, a mail invite saying, you and a guest are invited to see Star Trek 12.
Uh-huh.
And so you RSVP, and then you show up at one of the local theaters, usually sponsors the screening. Sometimes it's on the studio lot. Sometimes it's these little private screening rooms around town. And that's generally how you see these films. If a film is a real stinker, or at least the studio thinks it is,
Yeah, then what happens?
then they don't screen the movie. They don't, or they screen it like so late that you miss your deadlines.
So what do you do in those cases? You just forget it?
More often than not, I will forget it, but sometimes the studios are wrong. Sometimes if a film is so upsetting to them that they don't want to release it, you figure, well, this might actually be good, given some of the bull that they brought out.
Exactly.
This might actually be interesting.
Yeah.
But there's so many films now that open compared to when I started out, in '79 at the Herald, maybe 5-6 movies a week maximum. Now 12 to 14 films, and I do about 4 a week for the Monitor. I don't, kill myself to see everything, but I try to see.
4 is a lot.
But I see more than I review.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, because you don't always know.
What happens with the ones that you don't review? They just go by the wayside?
They vaporize, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I know something about them. If because I also do radio. Sometimes, the weeks that I'm on Film Week, I do more than 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that. But
Sure.
what about? Did you ever work with Roger Ebert?
I mean, I didn't, sit down and do a thumbs up thing.
Did you ever
with him.
think of doing that?
I mean,
they asked you, but you didn't want to do it.
There were some tryouts and stuff. The thing that always got me about that show is why did it have to be thumbs up and thumbs down, but never thumbs sideways?
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, because most movies that we see, we don't love or hate. They're just kind of, eh.
But that's how your book is, and I want to get to your book because it's broken into categories. First of all, 30 years. How does anyone remember what he saw? Or how, I can't remember what I saw last week, and I was at a screening with you.
Right, yeah, what was that movie? I forget.
So how'd you remember for 30 years?
Well, a lot of the pieces were written in the moment, so it's a collection. When I went back to go through many of them, I often thought, well, gee, I don't remember that, or I wrote that, or...
Did you have a list? Do you have all of your?
Yeah, well, I went back and I figured out what exactly I had reviewed in all those years by going through each year and looking at the films that actually came out during that year.
That's what I wondered, because you've got them broken into categories: overrated, underseen,
literary adaptations, theatrical adaptations,
documentaries,
hot button issues,
comedies,
intentional and unintentional,
literary, comedy,
yeah.
literary
and theatrical adaptations.
Yeah. So you put everything into
masterpieces.
Masterpieces, yeah. You put them all into categories.
Auteurs, Young Turks, different categories.
So under Young Turks, would those be interviews? Or would those be their films?
Essentially, this is their films. And because the book was so long in generating, the Young Turks are now Young-ish Turks.
Is that what happens? Did it take you a long time to get the book
It takes a long
done?
time. Collections, especially these days, are not even easy to achieve liftoff because they don't have, in the old days, John Simon and Pauline Kael and Andrew Saracen, every couple of years they would come out with a collection like clockwork.
Right.
It doesn't work that way anymore.
Was that Broadway or was that film?
Film.
Yeah,
film.
And also Broadway, they would do like 2 or 3 years and bring them out.
Some of them, Simon, Stanley Kaufman,
Right.
those guys would do theater. Frank Rich
Right.
had a huge collection.
Did you ever worry about being blackballed by a movie studio?
I have been.
So you did worry about it. What
sure.
happens with something like that?
Well, what happens is if you don't like enough of their movies, suddenly you find that you're not getting timely invites to their screenings, and there's always some excuse, like it's not ready, and then you say, well, if it's not ready, how come I know 88 people who've already seen the film and it's opening tomorrow? Paramount in the old days in New York had this thing where they didn't want any reviews to come out until like the day it opened or something. But if you worked for a weekly, as I did then, it comes out the Monday before the Friday opening.
Right.
So they knew my deadlines better than I did, and they just held up the screening for me until I missed my deadline, and the review would come out the Monday after the Friday opening. So they're very cagey about this stuff. The funny thing is there's a kind of there's a two-dimensional world in criticism. Studios, if you're a critic like myself, who is not considered just a total pushover for everything, they will not always be terribly accommodating because they figure what's in it for me.
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
And I mean, in a way, I understand that. They've got a lot of money riding on these films. Although it's kind of false flattery because the truth is that very few critics, if any, at this point, have the clout to make a difference at the box office. Even
really?
Roger,
Yeah.
only in
Didn't?
selected cases. No.
And why do you think? Because people aren't reading?
I think because people are much more, they read blogs, they do this, they do that. It's just not that big a deal if the critic for the New York Times thinks that the new Stallone movie isn't any good. People who are going to turn out for that film probably aren't reading reviews anyway. Whereas in the other world, if you're in the independent, small picture,
Right.
documentary, foreign film world, those people will build a screening room in your living room for you, to get you to see the film.
That's why I asked you, do they send you screeners?
Yeah.
Because a lot of those people do send you screeners.
They do,
because
yeah.
they want to make sure.
And
you see.
especially in Los Angeles, it's so hard sometimes to just get around with the traffic that, you say to yourself, do I really want to fight traffic for 2 hours to see this 87-minute Belgian film?
Exactly.
And
But which is probably a masterpiece.
which is
too.
probably a masterpiece, which is why I say, would it be possible to send me a screener? It's not ideal. If I was a filmmaker, I wouldn't want to have my film seen on a rather small screen compared to a big screen, but sometimes there's no alternative. And for documentaries, it often doesn't matter because those are sort of formatted for TV anyway.
Yeah, so that's what happens.
Yeah.
We have to go. But tell me what one of the masterpieces was. Are there a lot under masterpiece?
There are quite a few.
Oh,
yeah,
there are.
Yeah. Well, Night of the Hunter is a great old movie with Robert Mitchum. That's way up there. There's a terrific obscure film that people should rent called Hamsun with Max von Sydow by Jan Troell. Blue Velvet.
Oh, right.
Just a lot of treasures. And I think people will really want to rent these films or Netflix them when they see this.
And as we leave, I know your publisher said, this is a book that everyone should have because they can use it for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doubles as a reference book.
Yes.
It gives you in-depth reviews and essays on 30 years worth of movies.
Yeah, 30 years of film by Peter Rainer.
That's right. And
Thank
I started
you.
when I was 5 years old,
That's
too.
right. So did I. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Joan.
And don't go away. We'll be right back with artist who did this painting on the set, Eric Johnson. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with Eric Ernest Johnson, who was born and raised in Los Angeles, went to Crossroads School, and earned a BFA at San Francisco Art Institute. His work has been shown across America, as well as Europe and Asia. He has an eclectic palette ranging from acrylic on canvas and wood, printing on fabric, and using found objects. In his work, you can see reflections and references from colonial history, science fiction, and industrial engineering. And all that traces back to our American landscape, I think,
Absolutely.
and then it all comes out that way. When did you decide to be an artist?
When I was a little kid, when I was a little boy. for
What were
sure.
you doing?
Well, my sister's an artist. She's an
Oh.
art teacher now.
Oh, she is?
Yep. And she put a paintbrush in my hand, got me going. And I've been,
But you were
Nonstop.
painting funny things, I think.
I was painting funny things. I was painting all kinds of like cats and dogs and creatures and planes.
The Hindenburg?
I was obsessed with the Hindenburg.
Why was that?
I don't know. I saw that movie when I was a kid, and I just couldn't believe it. And just the tower that it landed on became like a featured image for me. So today, still, I'm still working on it.
Are you still doing those things?
Yes, absolutely.
Did going to the Art Institute, did that influence your work at all in a different way?
Absolutely. I had some great teachers, and the student body was incredible. I studied film with Larry Jordan,
Oh, you did?
and I had Carlos Villa as my painting teacher, and that was amazing.
And do you go back and forth to San Francisco?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
But you're living in Los Angeles now, right?
Yes.
Who else influenced you besides the school?
Nikki de Saint-Phal,
Oh,
big influence, huge influence.
Big pieces.
Yeah, I love her.
Colorful.
I loved her colors. I got to meet her, actually. My wife's father was good friends with her in La Jolla, and
Oh, yeah, she was living down there, wasn't she?
yeah, and it was just it was an amazing. You never think you're going to meet your heroes, and I got to meet her, and it was amazing. And she's been a big influence on me for sure.
And her
Like
colorway?
her colors, her multimedia style, her whole approach of just like going for it.
And talking about style, how would you describe your style? Gee, I said eclectic palette, but
I change my direction every day. I mean, sometimes I'm painting very folky style paintings. Sometimes I'm trying to do very serious, mobiles. My stories change. I think that when you see an Eric Johnson art show, it's like a group show.
And when-
all
yeah.
the different voices that I have. I really don't know what I'm going to do when I start, and then when it's finished, it's definitely different than the last. So.
But do you pick out, you find objects?
Absolutely.
One of the things. Where do you go to find your...
Anywhere. I have a truck, so
Do you fill it?
yeah. So when I drive down the street, certainly if I see something that I like, I'll grab it. But I mean, the things that I grab, I use, and I'm also an art director, so a lot of the props that we would normally just take to Sun Valley and take to the dump, I like pull the nails out and reuse it, everything.
Art director for what?
Toy commercials.
Oh,
and music
really?
videos and stuff.
And you did, I have an album cover.
Oh, yes.
So does that fit into this whole range?
It does. That is an album for Nick Freitas, who's a fantastic LA musician.
And did he actually ask for this, or did you
He did. He
get
selected
the influence?
that. He selected that painting for that, and it was a big honor. It's nice to be on vinyl. So, yeah, it's large. It's not a CD.
And then one of the other things, nature.
Nature.
We see nature, teepees.
I'm really obviously into the outdoors, and I find that trees are usually in every one of my paintings.
Trees
and
up
water.
And water, and then we have water.
Yeah.
Water paintings.
Water. Well, that stems from, I suppose, just being in Southern California and knowing that this is a desert. So, from the dam to here, that's
from the dam to here. But water and power.
Water and power, absolutely.
What is that?
Water and power. Well, I paint at night a lot, and I recognize what an amazing thing it is to have electricity. So, and I really appreciate, how this desert is now like trees, and our city's an amazing achievement, So.
And we have, in your work, we have all this color. And then I see that one of your great influences, and I'm going to lean over and get this piece, is Fujita.
Yeah, love him.
Japanese.
Yes.
I thought he did wood blocks too. Did he?
Absolutely. He was a painter. He's a ink drawer. I think that I liked his lifestyle, liked his the time. I mean, I would have loved to have been in Paris at that time. But I just, I'm a cat lover. He painted cats. That's how I found him.
Oh, he painted cats.
A lot. His cats, yeah.
But you use this influence, the ink, the black,
yeah,
on portraits too.
Absolutely. So, and I think that to be an artist like I am with so much color and what.
Yeah, so much color, and then to this.
Yeah, I like to do.
We're going from this to this.
Yeah. It gives me a more opportunity to really focus on the subject, and it's a nice contrast.
One thing that I don't have with me is fabric, but you print on fabric.
Absolutely.
And what do you do with those?
I make canvases, obviously, and so I use the fabric, and whatever colors that it has sort of dominates what the piece is going to be.
The fabric is like a canvas?
Sure, and I've worked with designers as well. Johnson Hardig and I collaborated.
But I know with Johnson Hardig, he does found objects too. He does found jackets.
Oh, absolutely,
and reuses them.
Yes.
And then you print on them?
Yes. Well, he does.
Or he prints your drawing, is that it?
Absolutely, yeah. Silk screens.
So how do you collaborate?
Or we actually hand paint on the...
Do you hand paint the...
Yeah, we did that. It was amazing.
But how do you collaborate? Because you've collaborated with a band too, but I'll get to that next. But like say with Johnson Hartig, Libertine.
Yes.
Tell me how that works.
He's a dear friend, and I am a big fan of what he does. And so he comes up with these crazy ideas and asks me, I want to paint trees on something. So that's how that started.
And then you started painting trees?
Organically just happened. And he had these brilliant ideas of, collaging these tufts of, I guess it was wool or what have you.
Did you do that?
He did, but I kind of created.
I
helped. He
orchestrates.
Yeah, he orchestrates, and I just.
You art directed.
Yeah.
But you also collaborated with your band.
Yes.
Fleshpot.
Yes, with my wife.
Tell me about that.
Fleshpot's been a Southern California band for about 16 years.
Wow.
And that's how we met. My wife and I met through.
She was in it?
She was the drummer in a band. Before we were called The Like, and she and Gina Kwan, who's a dear high school friend, and I were a little trio, and then Margaret and I formed Fleshpot.
Oh, is that right?
And we've been a band for
And where do you
16
play?
The Troubadour was our last gig a while ago. So
Really?
yeah, and we're still recording a record.
Did you make a logo?
Sure. I mean,
Did you do it? Did you design it?
well, I mean, it just says our name.
Oh, it just says your name.
yeah. It's not very much of a logo.
And one of the other things is you've done murals. There's this little alley
Yes.
in Venice. Is
Yeah.
this from there?
That's actually a mural. It's in Santa Monica at a
This
building
one?
in Santa Monica on 2nd Street.
And do
It's-
these all go together like this?
Those are multiple, that's a sort of, they're a bunch of photos of different angles of a 3-story mural. It's huge.
Oh wow! So this would be it.
That's one of the walls. Oh yeah, that says the address, 1424 2nd Street in Santa Monica. But yeah, that was a big project I did with the architectural group Tierra Solimar.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
really.
and they've
Did
been,
they call you in then?
Yes, they did, and that was an amazing project. I mean, there was no stairway, and I had scaffolding that was 60 feet off the ground, and I'm painting the ceiling and
So you're just painting the whole thing.
yeah.
The other thing
was
is, I know you teach and you've taught over at Pilgrim School
Yeah,
on
amazing.
6th and Commonwealth, which is, I'm on the board there.
Yeah.
And we were so happy to have you in the art department.
Yeah.
But you worked with these little kids.
It was great, 2nd grade, with Katrina Alexi, and it was amazing. And I mean, I learned so much from kids just being around them. For me, it's great. I learn a lot from them. They learn a little bit from me.
Because
so,
you
yeah,
have
it's
a great color sense, so they
Yeah.
must have liked that.
I have a naive sensibility, so yeah, kids are the best artists for sure.
Okay, now we have to get to the portrait.
Yes,
The
yes.
portrait of Joan Quinn.
Yes.
How did this start?
Well,
Does it look like it looks like a Persian miniature to me?
to me, yeah. Well, I mean, this painting is certainly in my little world. I have included my cat Albion,
Cat, with a
who's
little
my
bird.
best friend, and he's always around.
Yes.
He's always in my studio.
This water we see.
We got the water, the citrus
We
trees.
see the trees.
Sort of
again.
an Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden-ish
Nature.
story. There's yeah,
Nature.
yeah, lots of nature. Your necklaces.
Necklace
Sort of.
pearls.
Yes.
Colored hair.
Yeah. There's your hair, and I mean it's an happy painting, and it was really fun to do. And yeah, I had a blast. It was fun to kind of make you a sort of a monumental mountain.
Is that what that
of
is?
Joan.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
a monument.
Yeah.
And you have a very it's very flat, but it's almost naive, like these pieces.
Yeah.
And yet you have a great painterly hand.
Well, thank
the
you.
clouds here. I mean, they could really be like American realist paintings.
I'm trying to do that. I think I'm referencing work and knowing that I'm doing that because I'm referencing folk art and definitely realism. And it just so happens that I just, find my way as the work continues. I mean, this could have been different. And as the eye came in, and then I started going, oh my gosh, and then the cat became a little bit more illustrative. I mean, I can do realism, and I can do cartoons, and it's sort of, it just evolves.
Cartoons
It's
or
sort of-
whatever, it's a mix.
Yeah.
And I think David Hockney paints like that, and he's a great influence on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always have loved his work as a kid. I mean, he changed my life. So, and seeing that he, sky's the limit. Whatever he wanted to do, he's an incredible illustrator.
He was able to do it.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. And Picasso, just
Same, and he loves Picasso and Matisse as well.
unbelievable influences on me, and I think everybody. I mean, they're the real deal.
You had a show.
Here is Elsewhere.
That's what I thought it was.
Yes.
Here is Elsewhere.
Right across the street.
A gallery on.
It's at the Pacific Design Center.
Oh, it's in the Pacific Design.
Yeah.
It's in West Hollywood.
Yes.
Here is Elsewhere.
Yes.
What kind of name is this?
He's French.
What can we say?
Yeah. He's French. So he's going for a surrealist approach for his title. For sure. It's
What'd
almost
you
Richard
put-
Brodigan style.
What'd you put in the show?
Just about everything, and
All this whole
every style I can do, and mobiles, and
this watercolor that I love.
thank you. Yeah, that's
Was this something like this in the show?
absolutely, yeah. Those are cityscapes that I was doing, and I thought it would be really interesting to put my cityscapes on boats.
On the water.
Yeah, so that's sort of
And before we leave,
Yeah.
you've got a show in coming up in New York.
at Mulholland and Pollard. It's in the Lower East Side in July. So I'm really excited to
go to New York.
Well, we thank you for coming, Eric,
Thank
and
you.
I love the portrait, and I love all these little gems that you do, and I know Johnson Hartig has a great collection
Yes,
of them.
yeah.
I saw them over there the other day.
Oh, yeah,
And keep working over at Pilgrim,
Oh,
because
yes.
we love having you over
Oh,
there.
I love it too.
And we love having you watch us. So keep writing to us at 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor. But email me. I'm reading all your emails. JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. See you next time.